Good evening, Anthony Murphy from Mythical Ireland. I am using some software that's used very widely. It's called Google Earth, Google Earth Pro in this case. It's free to download. I have been using this software for over a decade now. I find that it is very helpful when researching alignments, especially those involving ancient and prehistoric sites. So today I want to show you something very interesting, something really grippingly fascinating in my opinion. And of course you probably can already see in the middle of the screen that I have a pin that is labelled the Stone of Divisions, Uisneach. Now, in his 1992 book, which was entitled Mythic Ireland, later republished in the year 2000 as Ireland, A Sacred Journey, Michael Dames suggested that the fifth province of Ireland, Meath, from there were, radial alignments that stretched out across the landscape in different directions across Ireland, and some of these involved significant astronomical events like sunrises and sunsets, and some of these involved ancient sites of particular importance. So Michael Dames spoke about a midsummer solstice sunrise alignment involving Uisneach and Loughcrew and Slieve Gullion. Now, I am not sure what methods Michael Dames used in 1992 to ascertain the precise alignment of sites, and I'm not sure whether he was aware of what I'm about to show you, which I think is rather exciting. So just to explain that, from Slieve Gullion in Armagh, which is in modern day Northern Ireland, there's a cairn up there called the Calliagh's house, and there's a chamber or passage and chamber in there that is aligned in such a way that the setting sun on winter solstice illuminates the chamber there. And when an observer is situated in the chamber of the cairn called the Calliagh house on Slieve Gullion, and I'm going to show you that cairn now, that they're actually looking towards Loughcrew, the hills of Loughcrew in the distance, in the direction of that sunset. So there's the cairn. It's known, I think, by the archaeologists as the Southern Cairn, because there's actually two cairns. There's actually a lake on the top of Slieve Gullion, which is fascinating, and the smaller Northern Cairn. Anyway, you can just about make out there that there is an entrance or a little hole there in the cairn. And actually, just looking at the cairn there, it looks like a little very rough small outline of the island of Ireland. I'm not sure whether that is anything other than just a coincidence at this point in time. So anyway, an observer there in the chamber of the Calliagh house on winter solstice is looking towards Cairn T at Loughcrew in the distance. And that's quite a distance away. Actually, I can measure that now. So if you've never used the ruler tool in Google Earth, it's really very excellent. So what you do is you zoom into the place you want to start. I have the measurements showing in miles. The European standard now is kilometres. In Ireland we changed from measuring in miles to measuring in kilometres. Excuse me, about 15 or so years ago, and I've never been able to get used to kilometres. I'm so used to miles. But anyway, that's only an aside. So you zoom out then, and you can stretch your line and line it up in the distance with your intended target. And you can zoom in so you can get it really, really very precisely, you know. And click, and that's a distance of 38, just over 38 miles, or 61 kilometres. So again, winter solstice sunset, and of course it goes without saying, because winter solstice sunset and summer solstice sunrise are opposite each other, that an observer at Cairn T in Loughcrew on the morning of the summer solstice will see the summer solstice sun rising over the mountain of Slieve Gullion, which is very obvious on all but the greyest and mistiest days from Loughcrew. By the way, the interesting thing about the line tool is that it also shows you a heading, an azimuth in degrees. So you can measure the azimuth between 2 points. Now, I should point out that this is in fact not a line, it's an arc. And the reason it's an arc is because the surface of the earth is, you know, curved. So in essence, it's not a straight line. It's kind of a curved line. It's not really showing there very well. Anyway, back to the matter in hand. So I said, you know, we're only a week away now from the Bealtaine Fire Festival at Uisneach, which is a modern festival which is only instituted in the last 6 or 7 years, or should I say reinstituted as a resurrection of something very, very ancient. And last year there were hundreds of people there, and it's quite a spectacle. Uisneach has quite a lot of archaeological remains and features on it. These are shown in a lot of the older Ordnance Survey maps. It's a place associated with Berra, the sovereignty, or the national sovereignty goddess of Ireland. And also has associations with Dagda, who was a chief of the Tuatha Danann. Anyway, so I wanted to look at this alignment that Michael Dames had written about in his book. And so I did this drawing of the line. I have one. Here's one I made earlier. The red line it turns red when you save it. So just to show you what I did, I made a line, you know, and I brought it all the way to the Calliagh Berra's house in Slieve Gullion. Sometimes because of the terrain, the line shows a little bit strange, but it links exactly up with the cairn. You can exaggerate the terrain on Google Earth, so you can show the profile of the mountains to a greater extent if you need to. Anyway, somewhat unsurprisingly, I found that this line passed through Loughcrew. But, and here's the bit that really kind of took me by surprise, was just the absolute pinpoint accuracy of it. So take a look at this. And again, when you zoom in on Google Earth, it seems to tilt. There we go. Straight through Cairn T. Cairn T being the Cailliagh's cairn on the summit of the hill that today is known as Cairn East, but in the older maps is called Uisneach-Loughcrew-Slieve Gullion, or the Hill of the Witch, or the Hill of the Hag. So we have the Hag's house at Slieve Gullion in Armagh, and we have the Hag's cairn at Loughcrew. One could argue, oh sorry, I'm spinning it around here unintentionally, one could argue the principal monument of the complex, although I think Cairn D and Cairn Ban, or Cairn Ban West as it's known today, is probably the largest. I think Cairn T may be the most significant, and of course it has its very well known alignment to the east for the vernal and autumn equinox sunrises. Some interesting places that this alignment passes through on its way. It passes over Loch Derravara, which is one of the places where the children of Lear spent time. It is sort of a swan-shaped lake. Of course, they were turned into the shape of swans. You can almost think of it as an open-mouthed swan with its long neck and, well, maybe the profile of its wings there. It's a very interesting place, Loch Derravara. And just north of Loch Lean, or just northeast of Loch Lean, it passes through Fore. And of course, Fore is fairly well known for its abbey, which is here somewhat, just immediately off the alignment. The Ben Locks, yeah. I had a look earlier on at, ancient sites which were along the alignment, and there are a lot of ring forts which straddle it either side. And of course, that could be just the fact that, so there, for example, there we have one. That could be just the preponderance of ring forts. I think there are 40,000 ring forts in Ireland. So it could be just that the preponderance of those means that you're going to get that. If you draw a line between any two places in Ireland, you'll get ring forts along any alignment. There were a couple of substantial forts directly on the alignment. I had saved them all as pins earlier on. Google Earth crashed on me without saving anything, and so since I set it up again, that was about an hour's work, and I haven't gone back to do that. Of course, now that I'm trying to show you, I can't find the 2 or 3 examples that I was referring to, but there are some very interesting sites along the alignment. The total distance from the Catstone or the Stoned Divisions in Uisneach to the Cairn on Slieve Gullion is just over 100 kilometres. I think it's about 63 miles. Actually, we can have a look at the properties. Yes, 63.8 miles, which is 103 kilometres. And we can even do something very interesting. We can have a look at the elevation profile, which will show us that, in fact, Slieve Gullion and Cairn T are the most significant peaks on this alignment. It's showing left to right instead of right to left, so maybe we should spin the view so that we can follow it logically and visually. So the highest point on the whole alignment obviously is Slieve Gullion, which is 561 meters elevation, and the next tallest peak is Uisneach-Loughcrew-Slieve Gullion, where Cairn T is located 259 meters above sea level. What are the implications of this? Well, first of all, it proves Michael Dames's proposition, suggestion, statement that there is indeed an alignment. It may be more accurate than he could have known or dreamt possible at the time. I haven't communicated with him about it, so I'm assuming that this would be a matter of great interest to anybody who's actually read that book, which is a fabulous work and a really beautiful work. The other thing, of course, is that we know that, or at least it is suggested that the Catstone, the Stoned Divisions, is probably a glacial erratic left there at the end of the Ice Age. So maybe what we're talking about 10 to 12,000 years ago. Isle na Mirren is the Irish for the Stoned Divisions. Yeah, a glacial erratic. And it is located 98 feet or 30 meters below the summit of the hill. So again, if you look at the profile, you'll see that it's on the southwestern slope of Uisneach. What does this mean? It means that, in fact, you cannot see Cairn T at Loughcrew or the Calliagh Berra's house at Uisneach-Loughcrew-Slieve Gullion from the Catstone, from the Stone of Divisions. But yet, there is an extraordinarily precise alignment of those three. This is not an isolated example of the alignment of prominent or eminent ancient sites over long distances, involving sites that were not necessarily intervisible. And so if you've followed my work, you'll have seen that I've documented several alignments, long distance alignments of sites. Is this a coincidence? I sincerely doubt it. It's, I think, a fantastic example of the ingenuity and the skill of a people that we are, we have a very, I think, poor understanding of those people of Neolithic Ireland, who seem to have had skills which are far greater than that we might give them credit for. So in addition to constructing cairns such as the Calliagh's cairn at Loughcrew and the Calliagh's cairn at Armagh, and similarly the great structures, the great monuments of Brunabonia, Nouth and Douth and Newgrange, I think they had great surveying and engineering skills, and I think a lot of that was based upon their astronomy and their excellent knowledge of the workings of the sun and of the moon, and indeed the rising and setting positions of the stars, which would have given them very accurate foresights. It is suggested that a fire lit on an eminent place such as Uisneach could be seen from a great deal of Ireland, and would be a terrific way to communicate. And this is also implied, by the way, in the story of the arrival of St. Patrick at the Hill of Slane, when Patrick was lighting the Paschal fire and bringing the flame of Christianity to Ireland. He did so in contravention of the law at the time, which stated that only the king could first light the fire at Tara, the High King. At the time that was King Leara. Only he could first light the sacred fire, and then everyone else could light it, but only after the fire had first been lit at Tara. Here is the Hill of Slane. Patrick lit the fire here in contravention of that law, enraging King Leara and causing him to try and find out who this person was. Here in the trees, shrouded in shrubbery and undergrowth, is a mound of unknown date, said in local folklore to be Dumas Sláine, the burial place of King Sláine, who was a Fir Bullock king. And the suggestion is that it's an ancient burial mound, prehistoric, later used by the Normans, fortified as a castle moat in the 12th century AD. Anyway, I'm digressing very slightly. The point being that when Patrick lit his fire, it was seen from Tara to the south, and I think that what's implied in that story is that a fire lit on one eminent place could be seen from another. But of course, the one thing that we don't think about, and here's the Hill of Tara, the one thing that we don't think about, and if you're looking towards the northeast, towards Slane, you're actually also looking in the direction of Faughart Hill, and that alignment is described elsewhere in another video and in on my website and in my books. The other point about Patrick's fire being that there already was a sacred Easter fire, obviously, before Christianity arrived in Ireland. How then would it be decreed that the king was the one who was to light the sacred fire immediately preceding the equinox, the day of the full moon after the vernal equinox, which is the date upon which Easter is fixed, also happens to coincide with a pre-Christian festival, and that in itself should be very interesting. Anyway, if you're interested in further reading about Uisneach and the radial alignments from there, I highly recommend Michael Dames's book, which I said I think is still available. So obviously a Google or an Amazon search would be in order. Just having a look here at my copy, published by Ted Smart, Element Books, in the year 2000, but first published as Mythic Ireland by Thames and Hudson in 1992, and richly adorned with lots of colour imagery. A very nice book to have on your shelf. In the meantime, any of those of you who are going to the Fire Festival at Uisneach, I hope to see you there next week at Bealtaine, and I'm really looking forward to it. And the day afterwards, I'm giving a talk in Loughcrew at the Megalithic Centre in Loughcrew. A talk that I was supposed to give at the equinox, but unfortunately it was snowing. And it's called Loughcrew, or Tracing the Calliagh, Myths, Megaliths and Astronomy. And that promises to be quite interesting. And afterwards, the hope is, if the weather allows, we're going to climb the summit of Cairn T, of Uisneach-Loughcrew-Slieve, and we're going to go to Cairn S, which is this one, and hopefully witness the sun setting into Cairn S for the Bealtaine sunset. So I hope to see you all there.